Okay, I wanted to go through and just kind of give you guys step by step on these questions that we had for the practice, the review going into the quiz that's coming up. So in Chapter 1, we talked about U.S. economy. We talked quite a bit about the fact that it's not purely capitalistic. It does have some social components, so it is a mixed economic system. Number 2 is asking about resources, and in this case, scarce resources. All of those are to be considered scarce resources. So manufactured resources, the natural and biological, obviously, and then humans are a limited resource as well. So when we look at the question up here, the big thing that you got to pick out of all of this is that the last thing is, what are they asking for? So they're asking for the opportunity cost associated with these three different choices. So remember that the opportunity cost is going to be the cost of the second best option. So what's our best option in this situation? It's obviously going to be the 16 million. So the cost of our second best option, that price is actually 13 million. So that's going to be our second best option. When we talk about economics from a standpoint of the big picture, we're not talking about how pricing structures change and those specifics. We're looking at the big picture, gross domestic product, gross national product, interest rates and such. That's going to be macro or large macroeconomics. When we look at, this was a big question that a lot of people had, and you just have to look at the definition of both positive and normative economics and then try to start to put that into perspective a little bit. So if we're talking about the activities of the specific of the U.S. agricultural producers, that's positive economics because it is what it is. It is the U.S. producers, not what the average would be or what would you expect, because then in that case would be normative. What would be the normal numbers? But in this case, we're talking about the positives, which is the exact numbers that we're working with. If we look at number 6, most resources are best suited for a particular use. So when we have something that is best suited for one narrow niche or a particular use, we know that that is through specialization. So remember, we had the example of Florida, Idaho, and Kansas. Florida had oranges, Idaho had potatoes, Kansas had wheat. And they would specialize in one of those and then barter or trade with the other states for the remainder. So when we look at the impact or that implicit cost that's associated with the next best alternative. So if we know that we need to choose something because it's the best alternative, we then have to look at the second best alternative, and that is what we call opportunity cost. This question was probably the toughest out of the bunch, and mainly because you really need to take a look at the question. This is a two-part question. So the first part is asking what's the best option, and many of you looked at this and it was real easy to see that option 3 was the best option because it's $600,000 profit. The second part of the question is going to ask what is the opportunity cost associated with that. So if we choose 600 and the next one is going to be the 475, we don't get to choose the 475 because we chose the 600. That's why we say the opportunity cost. We chose not to take the next best because we took this one here. So once we take that out of the way, the next best one, or the opportunity cost, is going to be $475,000. So really not so much about the expenses. Don't get hung up in that. We're really just looking at opportunity cost was the second part. First part was which option to choose.